Mysteries of the Yellow Emperor, the Son of Heaven from Regulus, legends claim. We know that the annals of China, Korea, and Japan, and the ancients used to keep a lot of very good annals, records of what was going on, claim that extraterrestrials landed about 2400 BC in that area. Paul Stonehill from Ancient Pages writes, Chinese and Japanese archaeologists claim they have discovered in China's southwestern province of Sichuan evidence of the fifth ancient civilization. Japan's Kyodo News reports, and the evidence is an earthen stage unearthed during a joint archaeology project and estimated to date back 4,500 years. So that's about the time that the annals of these countries, Japan, China, Korea, recorded extraterrestrial landings. It was found among the remains of the ancient castle near the banks of the Yangtze River, 56 miles, 90 kilometers, southwest of the city of Chengdu. The archaeologists involved in the excavation project explained that the earthen stage, pointing to advanced knowledge of construction techniques by those who built it, reinforces the possibility of a fifth civilization. The world's fourth oldest civilizations are known as Mesopotamia, Egypt, Indus, and China's Yellow River. Carbon isotope analysis on earthenware found at the excavation site was used to help identify the age of the castle and stage. In its very significant discovery, we may be closer to solving the enigma of the Yellow Emperor, Huangzi, 27th century BC, who it said lived in those misty reaches of time before the Shang dynasty. In the beginning, archaeological evidence suggests that China is one of the cradles of human race, the earliest known human in China, whose fossilized skull was unearthed in Shanxi province in 1963, is believed to date back to 600,000 BC. Around the 4th or 3rd millennium BC, in the New Stone Age, great changes occurred in the lives of the ancient Chinese. Large numbers of people began living together at settled places, cultivating land and domesticating animals. These people made polished stone tools and built shelters and pit dwellings and beehive huts that were covered with reed roofs. Such villages were found mostly in the area of the Great Bend of the Huanghe on the North China Plain. Despite its severe winters, this area was well suited to agriculture. In fact, it closely resembles the other cradles of ancient civilizations, such as the Valley of the Nile in Egypt. And as we'll see, it's an important fact because there are other striking similarities between the ancient civilizations. According to Chinese tradition, the Chinese people originated in the Huanghe or Huangho or Yellow River Valley. The legends tell of a creator, Pan Ku, who was succeeded by a series of heavenly, terrestrial, and human sovereigns. Rice was grown in eastern China around 5,500 BC, and about 5 centuries later, an agricultural society developed in the Huanghe, the Yellow River Valley. The emperor's legacy. These civilizations owes much to the legendary ruler. Agriculture and husbandry simultaneously developed in ancient times. When Huang Ti ruled, silkworm raising was accomplished earlier in China. Yu Ju Shu says Emperor Huang Ti started the silk clothing industry and cultivated mulberry for silkworms and hemp. As the Chinese archaeologists state, it's from historical records. We should be grateful for at least some historical records reach us from the mist of time. Ancient scribes took care to leave us an incredible tale of every very strange beings, and the one they called the Yellow Emperor, and it was in Huang Ti's age that the most ancient Chinese writing was invented. And that's how they kept their annals from then on. Like other ancient peoples, the Chinese developed unique attributes. Their form of writing, developed by 2000 BC, was a complex system of pictures writing using forms called ideograms, pictograms, and phonograms. Such early forms of Chinese became known through the discovery by archaeologists of oracle bones, which were bones with writings inscribed on them. They were used for fortune telling and record keeping in ancient China. In 1899, a small group of Chinese scholars and antiquarians collected antiquities of inscribed bones from their fields around Xia-chun, and 5 years passed before enough symbols could be deciphered to reveal the true nature of the dragon bones, quote unquote. They were a record of a people who called themselves Shang. They ruled land surrounding Anyang some 4,000 years ago. The objects embedded in the fields of Sao-tun came not from dragons, but from tortoises and from cattle. Shang kings desired to glimpse into the future, and their diviners inscribed the royal inquiries on the carefully scraped, polished tortoise shells or ox blade or leg bone. And years later, the People's Republic of China archaeologists uncovered thousands more Shang oracle bones. Corps of learned people created a whole new ank of linguistic study, Jia Jushu, the study of a shell or bone writing, and the scholars pored over writings of ancient diviners. They reached a provocative conclusion. Shang writing was not the oldest Chinese writing, not by 1,000 years at least. The characters used then were already so sophisticated that they undoubtedly had many centuries of development behind them. Very little is known pre-Shang writing. The Shang dynasty, 1766 to 1122 BC, is the first documented era of Chinese ancient China. The highly developed hierarchy consists of king, nobles, commoners, and slaves. The capital city was Anyang in North Henan province. Some scholars have suggested that travelers from Mesopotamia and from Southeast Asia brought agricultural methods to China, which stimulated the growth of ancient Chinese civilization. If so, there may be a direct connection with Sumer. The Shang people were known for their use of jade, ons, horse-drawn chariots, ancestor worship, and highly organized armies. A significant aspect of China is its long cultural and national history. The Chinese people have shared a common culture longer than any other group on earth. The Chinese writing system dates back almost 4,000 years. Ancient libraries. The earliest known libraries were connected with places and temples. In China, records of the Shang dynasty were written on animal bones and tortoise shells. An early library called the Healing Place of the Soul in the palace of Egypt's King Ramesses II, 1304 BC, at Thebes consisted of thousands of papyrus scrolls. Among the most important libraries in the ancient Near East was the palace library of Ashurbanipal, about 700 BC, at Nineveh in Assyria. This early type of national library, collected for the sake of distant days in the future, of course, consisted of over 30,000 clay tablets. Early libraries were usually priests. Librarians were priests, teachers, or scholars. The first known Chinese librarian was the philosopher Lao Tse, who was appointed keeper of the royal historical records for the Chu rulers about 550 BC. There's a definite connection between Lao Tse and the Yellow Emperor. Many cultures identify a sacred being as the creator of writing. In Egypt, the honor was shared by Thoth, the Hermes Trismegistus, the Atlantean, who wrote the Emerald Tablets, of course, and Isis, while the ancient Greeks thanked Hermes Trismegistus, of course, Thoth, for their writing words. The Yellow Emperor was a highly gifted son of heaven, quote unquote. Legend goes that he was the inventor of many things such as making clothes, manufacturing boats and vehicles, building houses and palaces, etc. He also had his court officials Lung Lin make musical instruments. Now compile the heavenly stems and earthly branches. The 10 heavenly stems and 12 earthly branches are used in combination to designate years, months, days, and hours. And Zhang Qi invent the Chinese characters. Thus, the Chinese tradition attributes the invention of writing to Zhao Che, a minister of the heroic Yellow Emperor Huang Ti. When men first learned to write, all spirits cried in agony as the innermost secrets of nature were thus revealed, quote unquote. Chinese mathematics. The origin of Chinese math is surrounded by a great amount of myth, since many of the ancient mathematical writings were lost through the decay of the bamboo material they used to write on. It's believed that the Emperor Huang Ti, the Yellow Emperor, was the first patron of mathematics, and under Huang Ti's rule, his ministers, Tai Mao and Li Shu, devised a hexadecimal-based number system and corresponding arithmetic. The Chinese believed that numbers had philosophical and metaphysical properties, and the Chinese used numbers to achieve spiritual harmony with the cosmos. They believed Mary's existence depended upon the numerical specified actions and obligations. Early Chinese math was presented in a literary form. There was no use of algebraic notation. The digits in their base 10 systems were cipheral, and they were written vertically on bark, bamboo, silk, and paper. And the traditional Chinese numerical system was a multiplicative grouping system, although a later system called scientific Chinese numerals was a positional system. In love, the oldest books on love are the Chinese handbooks of sex written 5,000 years ago by the legendary Yellow Emperor. And war, the Yellow Emperor, 2697 BC. And war, the knowledge of the four useful branches of military knowledge concerned with 1. Mountains, 2. Rivers, 3. Marshes, and 4. Plains, and enabled the Yellow Emperor to vanquish 4 several sovereigns. Napoleon had similar beliefs about the art of war. Ancient Chinese writings confirm that the Yellow Emperor was responsible for the invention of warfare. In the Liu Ti Ao, it's mentioned that Huang Ti, the Yellow Emperor, fought 70 battles and pacified the empire. Cao Kung's explanation is that the Yellow Emperor was the first to institute the feudal system of vassal princes, each of whom, to the number of 4, originally bore the title of emperor. Li Chuan tells us that the art of war originated under Huang Ti, who received it from his minister Feng. Huang Ti, or the Yellow Emperor, is referred to as the originator of the Chinese culture, and all the people of the Chinese race regard him as descendants of Yang Di and Huang Ti. The legend goes that at the beginning of the battle, Qi Yu sneezed out a thick fog over the place of at least 3 days, and soldiers of Huang Ti could not tell their directions. Fortunately, Huang Ti led his men out of the fog by compass chariot he had invented and won a complete victory. The Son of Heaven, the Yellow Emperor, was a rather interesting entity. They called him a human being, but not because the writer says to seek off or to offend the Chinese people, but because the information, she said, I had collected about Huang Ti, albeit scarce, convinces me otherwise. The ancient Chinese record mentioned amazing, wise, and humane, not human, beings, the sons of heaven. This term became emperor's title much later, who had done so much for the then savage dwellers of the Yellow River before the sons of heaven appeared on earth. Familiar celestial phenomena preceded all such appearances. Before Huang Ti was born, there occurred a radiance from the great star Qi and the Dipper constellation Ursa Major. A very ancient pre-Buddhist religion of Tibet described how a mighty friend of virtue and kindness had appeared on earth. Egg created the magical forces of gods Sa and Baal, exited under the action of its own weight from the divine bosom of empty sky. The shell became a defensive armor, the casing defended like armor, and that which is white became a source of strength for heroes. The inner casing became a stronghold for those who had dwelt in it. Huang Ti was very different from other ancient heroes. He did not enlighten people, did not demand worship. Huang Ti and his helpers were amazingly rational beings. Of course, they did teach the natives all kinds of useful science, including acupuncture. However, most important for them were their own affairs, and such affairs were dominated by the creation of complex and, alas, incomprehensible, at least to us, apparatuses and contrivances. Mr. Krapiva, noted Ukrainian researcher of anomalous phenomena, related in his book UFOs, A Hovering Enigma of History, Odessa, 1991, that the Yellow Emperor Huang Ti manufactured 12 gigantic mirrors of unknown nature and used them following the moon. Archaeologists in modern China added another detail. They cite the biography of Huang Ti, the Yellow Emperor. When the emperor met the West Empress at the mountains of Huangwu, 12 large mirrors were wrought for use month by month. According to Mr. Krapiva, the biography of Huang Ti was based on mysterious legends. What did the ancient scribes mean by following the moon? What drove Huang Ti to establish some connection between his mirrors and the moon? There is even a more curious detail uncovered by Krapiva. People of the mirror accounts on Wonders 6th century BC contain the following story. People of the Mirror Lake tell that where Huang Ti cast his mirrors, there remains a stone that polished them. Creeping grass, P.S., do not grow on the stone. Lo Tao lived at the age, did not see the stone in question. Miraculous tripods. Numerous sources relate that Huang Ti manufactured and used miraculous tripods, and the tripods were not used for water, nor was there any fire to heat and prepare food in them. They proposed of such a the purpose of such a tripod was quite different. It was the likeness of a great infinite Tao, the concealed engine of the universe. The tripod was approximately 3 to 4 meters in height, but its volume was relatively small, 100 liters. The legs carried most of their weight. A curious human observer would not be able to glance inside the tripod, but sources did say that hundreds of spirits filled its insides. Krapiva, who had studied all such sources available, is of the opinion that functional tripod emitted some noise and voices. The legends of ancient China said that the tripods depict dragons flying in the clouds. It was the same dragon who eventually arrived and carried off Huang Ti and his colleagues. Most likely the tripods were used for distant communications because their location was chosen in such a way that the star Swan 1 would be pointed at. It looks like they must have been looking like satellite discs, I guess. And this from that star that Huang Ti arrived on Earth, they said. We know this star is Regulus of the Leo constellation. There is a mountain 18 kilometers northeast of Zhangquin, first called Summit Lake Mountain, because there's a lake on its top. Legend says that the Yellow Emperor once had a tripod cast there, hence the present name, and it's Summit Lake Mountain. It's one of the 4 famous mountains in South China. The most interesting quality of the tripods was their ability to store knowledge and data. Such a tripod knew favorable and unfavorable signs, knew that which existed and that which has disappeared, and moreover, a tripod could remain still and could walk about, was able to become light and heavy. The sources listed by Ukrainian scholar are records of the foremost deeds of Huang Ti the Great and glorification of the 3 tripods of Huang Ti, written by Zhao Li. The Qi Yu entity. Huang Ti, the Yellow Emperor, and most of his assistants operated in northern China. It was there that the Chinese civilization subsequently developed. The south of China was developed by entities whose exact nature is not easily determined. Were they living organisms, independent mechanisms, or mechanisms controlled by living creatures? Could they have been robots? Ancient sources named them Qi Yu and others. Obviously, they were quite identical. Perhaps a discovery of the 5th civilization site at Chengdu and subsequent excavations will shed light on those who developed the south. Krapiva was able to collect some information about Chi Yu. Just like Quan Chi, Chi Yu had 4 eyes, at least considered as such, 6 arms, or manipulators. The strangest of all was Chi Yu's head. It was made from copper and had a metallic forehead and some tridents in place of ears. According to the local legends, the metallic head was cut off the body with all appropriate safeguards and buried separately, and years later this head continued to emit heat. On occasions, a reddish steam-like cloud would come from the burial site, and the locals worshipped it, according to 5 books of Huang Ti. Chi Yu was able to move in the rugged areas and even fly for short periods of time. His taste for food was quite impressive. All sources suggest that the creature ate stones and sand, and this way it obtained energy that was necessary for the creature's movements. Were Chi Yu and his brothers living creatures? Krapiva thinks they were complex autonomous mechanisms akin to robots, actually, but one of the creatures would have to be controlled by intelligent life form, but the natives considered them all as living creatures. Returning to his home star, Huang Ti ruled the land for 100 years, but his lifespan was much greater. Some sources suggest that he had lived for 300 years, where he spent the rest of his days, and what activities he was engaged in, open to speculation. There are Tao sources who state unambiguously that after 100 years of his rule, Huang Ti returned to his home star, ascended the heavens, and became the ruler of the great infinite, again turning into the star Xuan Huan, the same star that his tripods had pointed out. An ancient Chinese drawing of the Xuan Huan constellation has been identified by modern astronomers as that of the Leo constellation. Its brightest star, Alpha Leo, is Regulus. We do not know much about this star. We do know that there are very few similarities between our Sun and Regulus, but there is a very curious similarity. There exists in the Regulus star system a radio source that emits signals in metric wave bands. In our solar system, there is also such a source, and that is Earth. The essence of thunder. Huang Ti's image was that of a thunder. Aborigines of Australia have similar myths of beings who traveled at great speeds and emitted thunder, but Huang Ti, the Yellow Emperor, was a more defined thunder. Its thunder was identified with elongated drums. That is how the thunder was depicted, as bunches of drums, each drum subdivided into 4 sections. And what's more amazing, one of Huang Ti's assistants was known as Prince of Thunder, a navigator perhaps. Huang Ti, having possessed the essence of thunder, was able to move through space at enormous velocities. He had a dragon, Changhuan, used by Huang Ti to ascend to the sun. One ancient writing mentioned that this marvelous means of transportation originates in the land where suns are born and is very old, over 3,000 years, but most significant is the notion that the enormous speed has an effect on the movement of time and staves off the aging process of the human organism. Biography of Huang Ti states that a Changhuan covers myriads of miles in a day, and that the human who rides it can reach an age of 2,000 years. Regulus, Alpha Leo. Where did Huang Ti fly to? I look through the telescope on a bright starry night. Leo can be found in the northern hemisphere in the spring and southern hemispheres in autumn. Right ascension 11 hours, declination 15 degrees, visible between latitudes 99 and 65 degrees. That's seen in April at 9 p.m. Regulus, the 25th brightest star in the sky, means prince, and it has other names. Cor Leonis, the heart of the lion, Rex, Al-Kalb and Al-Saad, Ka Bel-Ed-Sed. And the origin of the name for the constellation where Regulus resides is also of interest to us. Leo is the Nemean lion from the moon who was set by Hera to slay Hercules, As Hercules' first labor, he killed the lion by strangling it with his bare hands. Legend says that the lion had a hide that could not be punctured by iron, bronze, or stone. Since he could not reason with the ferocious beast, Hercules strangled it to death, and the local people were very grateful. Hercules wore the skin, which made him invincible, and when Hercules died, the lion was returned to the celestial heavens with Hercules. Did the myths of ancient Greeks originate in China, and the dragon become the lion? The Chaldeans associated Leo with the sun, since it's in the sky during the summer solstice throughout, although it's no longer true due to the precession of the Earth's axis. Since the Nile floods around this time, the ancient Egyptians worshipped the celestial lion. Leo, to the Egyptians, was the place the sun rose after creating near Denebola, after the creation, and so was called Domicilium Solis, the badge of fire and heat, or the house of the sun. What secrets will be uncovered by Chinese and Japanese archaeologists? Will the discoveries lead to us to evidence that we humans have so longed for, the evidence that ages ago we were not the only intelligent life form on Earth? And this is written by Paul Stonehill on Ancient Pages. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.